The cage door opened, but the dog did not run. She looked past Freedom and waited for the man to notice what was still locked. Former Marine Staff Sergeant Cole Bennett stood inside the abandoned barn with one hand on the rusted latch and the other holding an old metal flashlight. Morning light entered through gaps in the siding, cutting pale lines across dry hay, dust, and empty feed bins. The air smelled of cold iron, damp wood, and grain left too long in the dark. At the back of the barn, a mature German shepherd watched him from inside a large wire cage. Her sable black and tan coat was dull with dust, but her amber eyes were clear. A worn brown leather collar circled her neck. No tag, no name, no sound. Cole had arrived at the foreclosed Kentucky farm before 8 to document damage for the bank. The property report described an empty house, an unused barn, and no animals. That report had been wrong before he reached the front steps. The cage held an empty food bowl, a metal water dish tipped on its side, and a folded blanket pressed into one corner. The dog did not bark when Cole approached. She stood slowly, keeping her body angled toward the barn door rather than toward him. "Easy," he said. "I am not here to take anything from you." Her ears moved at his voice, but her gaze returned to the farmhouse across the yard. Cole crouched beside the cage and poured water from his work bottle into the metal dish. The shepherd waited until he moved back before drinking. Even then, she took only a few quick laps. Not desperate, controlled, as if thirst mattered less than time. Cole examined the latch. It had been fastened with a new brass padlock, cleaner than everything around it. The cage itself was old. The lock was not. He removed a compact cutter from his tool bag and worked through the thin chain without forcing the door against the dog. The metal gave with a sharp snap. The shepherd stepped back. Cole opened the cage wide and moved aside, leaving a clear path toward the barn entrance. Outside, the farm gate stood open. Beyond it, a gravel road curved toward open fields and a line of trees. The dog could have disappeared in seconds. She did not. She stepped out, stretched each leg carefully, and walked past Cole. At the barn door, she stopped. Sunlight touched the lighter patch beneath her throat. She looked across the yard at the farmhouse. Then she looked back at him. Cole stayed where he was. The dog took 6 steps toward the house, paused, and looked back again. "You want something in there?" he asked. She turned and continued. Cole followed at a distance, carrying the flashlight and his inspection folder. The farmhouse appeared deserted. One shutter hung loose. The porch boards were dark from overnight rain. A foreclosure notice had been taped inside the front window, though one corner had peeled away. The shepherd climbed the steps and pressed her nose against the front door. Cole checked the bank keys. The third one opened it. Cold air moved from inside, carrying the smell of dust, old coffee, and something softer beneath it. Laundry soap, crayons. A home emptied too quickly. The shepherd entered first. She moved through the living room without searching, passing a covered couch and a stack of unopened mail. Under the dining table lay one small blue sneaker. A box of cereal stood open on the counter, its contents stale but not scattered. Near the hallway, a child's blanket had been folded against the wall. Cole's attention sharpened. This was not an abandoned house. It was a house someone wanted to look abandoned. The shepherd reached the far end of the hallway and stopped before a heavy wooden door. Scratches marked the paint near the bottom. A red elastic hair tie hung from the handle. Cole tried the knob. Locked. He tested every key on the bank ring. None fit. The German shepherd placed one paw against the door and lowered her head, listening. Cole did the same. At first, he heard only the settling house and water moving through old pipes. Then came a faint metallic tap from below. 3 times. Silence. 3 more. The dog looked at him. Cole raised the flashlight. The cage had been open. The road had been clear. She had not wanted escape. She had wanted a witness. Cole kept one hand near the locked door and listened again. The pattern returned after several seconds. 3 taps. A pause. 3 taps. The German shepherd pressed her nose to the lower edge of the door, then stepped back and looked toward the kitchen. Cole followed her gaze. A set of muddy shoe prints crossed the old linoleum near the sink, but they ended before the hallway. Someone had cleaned the floor in between. Not well enough. A thin line of dirt remained along the baseboard, leading to the basement door. He crouched beside the lock. The brass was bright, newly installed, and scratched around the keyway. The screws on the plate were cleaner than the wood around them. Whoever had changed it had done so recently. "You did not do this," he said quietly. The dog stood beside him, breathing fast but staying still. Cole took out his phone and called Deputy Aaron Mills, the local officer listed on the bank access sheet. "I am at the Crane property on Route 9, Cole said. "There is an animal on site, evidence someone was living here, and a locked basement with possible movement below." Mills answered without hesitation. "Do not force the door. I am 10 minutes out." Cole ended the call and checked the rest of the hallway. A framed family photograph had been removed from the wall, leaving a pale rectangle in the dust. Near the stairs sat a small wooden school desk with one broken pencil, a spelling worksheet, and the name Owen written across the top in careful block letters. The shepherd approached the paper, sniffed it, then returned to the basement door. Cole looked at her collar. Faint stitching remained on the inner leather, almost hidden beneath wear. He angled the flashlight and read one word. "Belle. That is your name," he said. Her ears lifted. "Belle." She looked at him fully for the first time. The recognition was small but certain. Cole repeated it once, softer. Belle moved closer and touched her nose to his hand. Then she turned back to the door. The house gave another long creak as wind pushed against the loose shutter outside. From below came the metallic tapping again, but this time Cole noticed something different. The sound was not coming from the center of the basement. It was closer to the far wall, where old plumbing ran toward the backyard. He placed his ear against the wood. Beneath the tapping was a faint hum, uneven and weak, like a small motor struggling to restart. "Generator," he murmured. Belle tilted her head. The noise stopped. Silence returned. Cole walked to the kitchen and found the breaker panel hanging open. Several switches had been turned off by hand. One labeled red basement lights. Another read well pump. A third had been crossed out and rewritten generator room. None were active. He checked the back door. Locked from inside. Through the window, the yard sloped toward a drainage ditch and a greenhouse with cloudy panels. The grass near the foundation was flattened in a narrow line, as though people or animals had passed there repeatedly. Cole returned to the hallway. Belle had not moved. He found the child's blue sneaker beneath the table and set it near her. She sniffed it once, then looked toward the basement. The answer was immediate. The shoe belonged to someone she knew. A vehicle pulled into the gravel drive. Deputy Mills entered with a portable light, a tool case, and the careful expression of a man who had seen enough false emergencies to respect the real ones. Cole showed him the new lock, the clean section of floor, the worksheet, and Belle's reaction to the sneaker. Mills examined the foreclosure notice, then the lock. "Bank did not install this," he said. "Their hardware is tagged." He opened a small evidence bag and photographed the plate before using a narrow bypass tool. The lock resisted. Belle stood behind them, eyes fixed on the door. "Who owns the place?" Cole asked. "Walter Crane, 62. Currently in a rehabilitation hospital after a mild stroke." Mills paused. "His nephew Travis has been handling access." The mechanism clicked. Cold air rose through the opening. Belle stepped forward, but Cole placed one hand near her collar. Slow. The basement stairs descended into darkness. Mills switched on his light. The beam revealed concrete walls, shelves of canned food, 2 mattresses, a child's desk, and clothing folded in plastic bins. No one stood below. No one answered. Then the tapping came again from behind a wooden partition at the far end. 3 times. Belle pulled gently toward it. Cole followed the light down the stairs and felt the first doubt settle in his chest. The room looked like proof of something terrible, but Belle did not act afraid of it. She acted as if the truth was one wall farther in. Cole descended the last step with Belle close beside him and Deputy Mills a few feet behind. The basement air smelled of damp concrete, canned food, cold metal, and laundry soap. It was not the smell of a place abandoned for years. It was the smell of a room used recently, then emptied in haste. Mills swept the portable light across the walls. 2 mattresses rested on wooden frames. A child's blanket lay folded near a small desk. Crayons filled a coffee mug. Several cans had been arranged by date on a shelf, and a battery lantern sat beside a weather radio. Cole looked at the scratched side of the basement door. From above, the marks had seemed like proof that someone had tried to escape. Down here, he could see they were low, narrow, and curved. Claw marks. Belle had made them from the other side while trying to reach someone below. This was a storm shelter, Mills said. He pointed to emergency instructions posted beside the stairs. Tornado procedures. Water storage. Ventilation checks. Maybe, Cole replied. But somebody still locked it from upstairs. Belle moved toward the wooden partition at the far end. 3 metallic taps sounded again. She placed one paw against the lowest board and looked back. Cole raised his flashlight and examined the wall. One section had been fitted with hinges, then painted to resemble the surrounding paneling. A narrow gap showed along the floor. Mills photographed it before pulling the recessed handle. The panel opened inward, revealing a cramped utility space. Inside, a small backup generator sat silent beside a drain pipe. A loose metal vent cover swung gently whenever wind moved through the pipe, striking the wall 3 times before pausing. The mysterious signal had not come from a person. It had come from the house breathing through a damaged vent. Cole exhaled, but Belle did not lose interest. She entered the utility space, sniffed along the far wall, and stopped at one warped board. Her nose moved quickly. Then she scratched once. Mills crouched beside her. "There is air coming through here." Cole pressed his palm near the seam. Cool air touched his skin. He removed 2 loose screws with a multi-tool and pulled the board aside. Behind it was a narrow passage, barely 3 feet wide, sloping downward beneath the foundation. Mud marked the floor. Small shoe prints crossed it beside larger adult tracks. Blue plastic ties had been fastened to exposed pipes at regular intervals, creating a trail through the darkness. Cole remembered the child's worksheet upstairs. Owen. Someone had taught the boy how to mark the way. "Emergency exit," Mills said. "Old farmhouses sometimes had drainage access, but I have never seen one maintained like this." Belle stepped into the passage, then turned to make sure Cole followed. He aimed the flashlight ahead. The tunnel extended 20 feet before curving toward the back of the house. A folded woman's sweater lay near the entrance. Beside it was a child's backpack containing crackers, a water bottle, and a library book. Cole opened the front pocket. Inside was a photograph of a smiling woman, a young boy, Walter Crane, and Belle standing near the farmhouse porch. On the back, someone had written Megan, Owen, Grandpa Walter, and Belle. Mills studied the photograph. Walter is not related to them. The boy may have called him Grandpa. Cole looked around the shelter again. The canned food had been labeled in 2 different handwritings. The desk was positioned beneath a reading lamp. A height chart marked Owen's growth on a support post. This was not a place designed to hold a family against their will. Someone had tried to make it safe. Footsteps sounded on the stairs. A woman entered carrying a county identification badge and a thick folder beneath one arm. "Hannah Price," she said. "Family Services. Deputy Mills called me from the driveway." Her eyes moved over the mattresses and supplies, then softened with recognition. "I have been looking for this room." Cole held up the photograph. "You know them?" "Megan Lowe and her son, Owen. Walter let them stay in the cottage after they lost their apartment. During storm warnings, they used this basement because the cottage had no shelter." Mills gestured toward the locked door. "Why was it secured from upstairs?" Hannah opened the folder. "It should not have been." She showed them a housing agreement signed by Walter, along with school enrollment records and a letter confirming Megan's legal tenancy. "Walter contacted our office before his stroke. He wanted the arrangement protected if anything happened to him." Cole looked toward Belle. "Then who locked her in the barn and changed the basement lock?" Hannah removed another page. "Walter's nephew, Travis Crane, claimed the property was vacant and requested an immediate sale." She pointed to a dated inspection form. "He reported no tenants and no animals." The room grew quiet. Mills examined the new lock photographs on his phone. Travis had access after Walter entered the hospital. Hannah nodded, and he filed paperwork removing Megan's name from the property records. Belle moved deeper into the passage and pulled gently at the blue markers with her nose. Cole understood what she was telling them. The papers explained who had betrayed the family. The muddy trail explained where the family had gone. He tightened his grip on the flashlight. Megan and Owen used this exit. Hannah looked into the darkness. "Then they may still be somewhere on the property." Belle stepped into the passage, walked several yards, and turned back. The first look meant follow. This one meant they had already waited too long. Cole entered the narrow passage behind Belle, keeping the flashlight low so the beam followed the blue ties along the pipes. Deputy Mills moved behind him, while Hannah remained near the basement entrance to call for additional help and protect the records they had found. The tunnel was damp but passable, with packed earth beneath old boards and cool air flowing steadily toward the far end. Belle moved quickly, then stopped at every bend to look back. Cole recognized the pattern. Not fear, not confusion, direction. The passage curved beneath the yard and ended at a wooden hatch hidden behind tall grass near the drainage ditch. Mills lifted it carefully. Daylight spilled across the tunnel floor. Belle climbed out first and lowered her nose to the ground. The flattened grass formed a narrow trail leading away from the farmhouse toward an unused cornfield. Small blue ties had been fastened to fence wire and low branches every 30 or 40 feet. Owen had marked the route exactly as the emergency instructions had taught him. Smart kid, Mills said. Cole studied the tracks. One set of adult shoes. One pair of smaller boots. Both several days old, but still visible where the soil remained soft beneath the weeds. Belle found the child's scent on a strip of blue fabric caught near the fence and began moving faster. Cole followed, pushing through shoulder-high grass until the farm disappeared behind them. The trail crossed a broken section of fencing and descended toward a narrow creek. A fallen tree formed a natural bridge over the water. Belle stepped onto it, stopped halfway, and looked back. Cole tested the trunk before crossing. On the far bank, the blue markers continued through a stand of sycamore trees. The morning had warmed, but the ground beneath the branches remained cool and smelled of wet bark, moss, and rich soil. Mills received a call from Hannah. Walter's hospital records confirmed he had signed the housing agreement before his stroke. The bank had no record authorizing Travis to remove tenants or animals. Cole listened without slowing. Any sign Travis is nearby? His truck was seen at a gas station 2 counties east yesterday, Mills said after ending the call. He is not believed to be on the property. Cole looked toward Belle. She did not know that. Megan and Owen would not know it either. If they had escaped through the tunnel after someone locked the basement from above, every sound near the farm might have felt like a reason to keep hiding. The trail climbed from the creek toward an abandoned greenhouse near the north boundary. Several cloudy glass panels were missing, replaced by plastic sheeting secured with tape. Belle stopped 50 feet away. Her entire body changed. Her ears rose. Her breathing quickened. Then, from inside the greenhouse, came a soft voice. Belle. The dog ran. She crossed the clearing, slipped through the open doorway, and disappeared behind rows of empty planting tables. Cole and Mills slowed as they approached. This reunion did not belong to strangers arriving at full speed. Inside, an 8-year-old boy knelt on the packed dirt floor with both arms around Belle's neck. His dark blonde hair was uncombed, and his blue sweatshirt matched the fabric caught on the fence. Belle pressed against him, tail moving hard enough to strike the leg of a table. A woman sat nearby on a folded blanket, her face tired but alert. Several water jugs, canned foods, and battery lanterns had been arranged along the wall. They had prepared carefully. They had not expected to stay so long. Cole stopped near the entrance and lowered the flashlight. Megan Lowe. The woman stood and placed one hand on Owen's shoulder. Who are you? Cole Bennett. The bank sent me to inspect the farm. Deputy Mills is with me. Hannah Price is at the house. Megan's expression tightened at the word bank. We have papers. We found copies. Cole kept his voice calm. Hannah confirmed Walter gave you legal permission to stay. Owen held Belle closer. Is Grandpa Walter okay? Mills answered. He is recovering in the hospital. Relief moved across the boy's face, but Megan remained guarded. Travis said Walter changed his mind. He shut off the cottage power and told us the property had been sold. Then we found the basement door locked. Cole looked at Belle. How did she end up in the barn? Megan shook her head. She was outside when we used the tunnel. We called for her, but someone drove into the yard. Owen wanted to go back. I could not risk it. Her voice softened. We thought she had run. Owen buried his face in Belle's coat. She never runs. Megan reached inside a waterproof grocery bag and removed a folder wrapped in plastic. Walter told me to keep these away from Travis. Inside were the signed tenancy agreement, copies of tax records, and bank statements showing unauthorized transfers from the farm account. Mills took photographs without removing the pages from Megan's hands. These may explain why he wanted the property declared empty. Cole looked through the cloudy greenhouse wall toward the distant farmhouse. One new lock, one false report, one family made invisible on paper. Belle lifted her head from Owen's shoulder and looked at Cole. For the first time, she did not turn toward another hidden path. She had found who she came for. Now the locked doors belonged to the truth. Mills photographed every page in Megan's folder before sealing the images inside the county evidence system. He did not take the originals. "Keep those with you," he said. "Hannah will compare them with Walter's copies." Megan nodded but did not relax. Owen remained on the ground beside Belle, one hand buried in the thick fur at her shoulder. The German Shepherd had stopped scanning the greenhouse. For the first time since Cole opened the cage, her breathing was slow. She had completed the path she knew. Cole looked at the water jugs, lanterns, and canned food lined against the wall. "How long have you been here?" "3 nights," Megan said. "We thought someone might return to the farmhouse." "Travis?" Mills asked. "I did not see his face after the basement door was locked. I only heard a truck." She glanced toward Owen. "I did not want to guess wrong with him there." Cole understood. Fear did not need certainty to become practical. Sometimes it only needed one closed door. Hannah's voice came over Mills's radio. Walter's attorney had located the original housing agreement, and the bank had paused all action on the property. A county team was on the way with food, transportation, and a medical worker to make sure Megan and Owen were well. Mills relayed the message slowly. Owen looked up first. "Can we go home?" Megan answered before anyone else. "Not until we know the locks are changed." Cole looked back toward the farm. "Then that is where we start." They returned by the marked route. Belle walked beside Owen now instead of leading. Each time the boy stepped over a root or ducked beneath a branch, she matched his pace. Cole followed several feet behind, carrying one water jug and Megan's extra bag. The blue ties along the fence no longer looked like clues. They looked like a child's attempt to leave a way back. At the farmhouse, Hannah waited with 2 county workers and a woman from the school district who recognized Owen immediately. She knelt to speak with him at eye level, then stepped aside when Belle moved between them. "She is checking," Owen explained. "She always checks." Hannah smiled gently. "Then we let her." Inside the house, Megan stopped at the basement door. The new brass lock hung open from Mills's tool. She did not cross the threshold right away. Cole stood beside her, but said nothing. Belle entered first with Owen, walked down 3 steps, then turned to look back. Megan took one breath and followed. In the shelter, Hannah compared the original papers with the copies Walter had filed. Every signature matched. The dates matched. The emergency plan matched. Only Travis's later records contradicted them. "He did not erase you legally," Hannah said. "He only tried to make the paperwork confusing enough that no one would look twice." Megan looked at the child's desk, the folded blankets, and the scratched door. It almost worked. Cole knelt beside the lower marks. "These are Belle's." Owen nodded. "She used to wait outside the door during storms. If I went downstairs before her, she scratched until Grandpa opened it." The scene changed again. What had looked like panic from someone trapped below was evidence of a dog trying to reunite with the boy inside. Cole stood and examined the lock plate. "This comes off today." Mills agreed. He contacted the bank and received written permission to secure the property under county supervision. By early afternoon, the new lock had been removed, the breaker switches restored, and the cottage power tested. Cole replaced the basement hardware with a latch that could be opened from either side. He also installed a temporary alarm that sounded if the door closed unexpectedly. Owen watched every step. "Will it lock us in?" he asked. "No," Cole said. He opened and closed it twice, then handed the boy the handle. "You can always open it from here." Owen tested it himself. The latch moved easily. Belle sat beside him, watching his hand. Outside, another county vehicle arrived carrying clean clothes and groceries. Walter called from the rehabilitation hospital through Hannah's phone. His voice was weak but clear. Megan held the speaker near Owen. "Grandpa Walter?" the boy said. "We found Belle." A quiet laugh came through the phone. "I think Belle found all of you." Owen looked toward Cole. "She found him first." Walter asked to speak with Cole. "You opened the cage?" "Yes." "Then you listened when she did not leave." Cole looked at Belle resting beside Owen. "She made it difficult not to." Walter was silent for a moment. Travis always thought locks meant ownership. He never understood that a place belongs to the people who keep it safe. Cole looked around the basement, now bright beneath restored lights. The room no longer resembled a hidden prison. It looked like what Walter had built it to be. A shelter, a classroom, a place where a frightened family could wait until the storm passed. Above them, sunlight entered through the open doorway and reached the bottom stair. Belle watched it cross the floor, then placed one paw beside Owen's shoe. The cage had been opened that morning. The first real door was opening now. By late afternoon, the farmhouse no longer felt abandoned. County workers moved carefully through the rooms, restoring water, checking windows, and documenting every item Travis had reported missing or discarded. Hannah sat at the dining table with Megan, comparing the tenancy records line by line. Deputy Mills stood near the front window speaking quietly with Walter's attorney. Owen remained in the basement with Cole, watching him replace the final section of damaged trim around the door. Belle lay across the bottom stair, close enough to see both the boy and the hallway above. "Why did he lock her up?" Owen asked. Cole set down the screwdriver. He could have given the boy the simple answer. Because Travis wanted the property empty. Because a dog could lead people back to the truth. Instead, he chose the honest one. He thought keeping her quiet would make everyone else easier to ignore. Owen looked at Belle. She was not quiet. "No," Cole said. She was patient. Belle lifted her head at the sound of his voice, then rested it across her paws again. Hannah appeared at the top of the stairs carrying a printed email from the bank. "The foreclosure sale has been suspended," she said. "Walter's ownership remains under review, but no one is being removed while the fraud investigation is active." Megan came down behind her. Relief showed in her face, though caution remained. "Can Owen and I stay in the cottage tonight?" Hannah nodded. "The power is stable." The county completed the safety check. Deputy Mills will arrange patrols until Travis is located and formally served. Owen looked toward the tunnel entrance. "Do we have to use that way?" "Only during an emergency," Cole said. "And tomorrow I am adding better lights and a weatherproof hatch." Megan studied the new latch on the basement door. "You have done more than the bank hired you to do." Cole stood and wiped dust from his hands. "The bank hired me to identify what needed repair." He looked at the bright stairwell, the open door, and the dog resting where Shadow had been that morning. They underestimated the list. Hannah handed him another document. It was a copy of Travis's property management authorization. The signature at the bottom did not match Walter's handwriting on the tenancy agreement. Mills joined them and examined it. Walter's attorney says this authority was never approved. Megan removed the waterproof folder from her bag and placed one bank statement beside the copied form. Several transfers had gone to a private account controlled by Travis. Mills photographed both pages. "This gives the financial investigator a clear trail." Owen listened from beside Belle. "Will he come back?" Mills lowered himself so they were at the same height. "He will not be allowed to manage this property again. Adults are handling the rest." Owen nodded, but his hand tightened around Belle's collar. Cole saw it. Locks could be removed in minutes. The fear they left behind took longer. As evening approached, Walter called again from the rehabilitation hospital. Hannah placed the phone on speaker at the kitchen table. Walter confirmed that Megan's lease remained valid and asked the county to preserve the farm until he could return. "The cottage was meant to be a beginning," he said, "not something another man could erase with paperwork." His voice weakened, but the purpose did not. Megan thanked him. Owen asked when he could visit. Walter promised soon. Then he asked for Belle. Owen held the phone near her. Walter spoke her name. The shepherd's ears lifted. She approached the table, touched her nose to the speaker, and listened. "Good girl," Walter said. "You kept the right door open." Belle looked from the phone to Owen, then toward Cole. For a moment, the room became still. Cole remembered the barn, the open cage, and the way she had refused to run toward freedom. She had understood something he had not. Leaving was not the same as being safe when the people you loved were still missing. After sunset, Cole walked to the barn with Owen and Belle. The cage remained where he had found it, its broken chain hanging from the latch. Owen stopped several feet away. Belle did not enter. She stood beside him, calm and watchful. "Can we get rid of it?" Owen asked. Cole looked at the metal panels, still strong beneath the rust. "We can change what it is." He unbolted the first section while Owen held the flashlight. Belle lay in the open doorway, no bars between her and the night. By the time the stars appeared, one side of the cage had been removed. Cole carried it toward the small garden beside the cottage. "What will it be?" Owen asked. Cole leaned the metal frame between two wooden posts. "A gate." Owen touched the old wire, imagining it already transformed. Belle walked through the open space before the hinges were attached. She paused on the other side and looked back. This time, no one needed to follow her into darkness. They only needed to keep the path open. The next morning, Cole returned to the garden before sunrise with a drill, 2 heavy hinges, and a small box of weatherproof screws. Owen was already waiting beside the unfinished frame, wearing an oversized work jacket and holding Belle's leash loosely in one hand. The German shepherd stood at his side, watching the old cage panel as if she understood that it no longer belonged to the barn. Mist rested low over the fields. The farmhouse windows glowed behind them, and the cottage chimney carried a thin line of smoke into the pale Kentucky sky. "You said it would be a gate," Owen said. Cole set the tool case on the ground. "Then we make it one." He measured the opening between the wooden posts while Owen read the numbers back to him. Belle walked through the space several times, never touching the wire. Cole attached the hinges, trimmed one rusted edge, and fitted a simple latch low enough for Owen to reach, but high enough that Belle could not push it open with her nose. When the work was finished, Owen tested the gate. It swung freely. No chain, no padlock, no sound except the soft creak of new hinges. "Can she try it?" he asked. Cole opened the gate wide. Belle looked at the path beyond, then at Owen. He did not call her. She stepped through on her own, turned once inside the garden, and came back. Owen smiled for the first time without looking over his shoulder. Hannah arrived shortly after 8, carrying fresh copies of the county protection order and a folder from Walter's attorney. Deputy Mills followed in a separate vehicle. His expression was calmer than the day before, but the case had moved quickly. "Travis was located last night," he said. "He has been ordered to stay away from the property while investigators review the records." Megan stood on the cottage porch with both hands around a coffee mug. "Did he admit changing the locks?" Mills shook his head. "Not yet, but the locksmith invoice was charged to his account, and the barn lock matches the same purchase." Cole looked toward Belle. 2 new locks. 1 false vacancy report. 1 plan repeated in different places. Hannah opened Walter's folder on the porch table. Inside was a notarized statement confirming Megan's lease, Belle's ownership by Owen, and Walter's intention to preserve the farm for residential use. Another document named a temporary independent manager until Walter recovered. Travis's name appeared nowhere. "The bank has withdrawn the immediate sale request," Hannah said. "The farm stays protected while the financial investigation continues." Megan exhaled slowly. Owen crouched beside Belle and pressed his forehead against hers. Cole watched them without stepping closer. Yesterday, the boy had asked whether Travis would come back. Today, a piece of paper could finally answer more honestly than reassurance alone. Walter arrived from rehabilitation just before noon in a county transport van. He used a cane and moved carefully, but his eyes were clear. Owen ran to the porch and stopped before reaching him, remembering at the last second not to knock him off balance. Walter opened one arm. The boy stepped into it. Belle reached them next, circling once before leaning against Walter's leg. "There you are," Walter whispered. He placed one hand on her head, then looked toward Cole. "You must be the man who listened." Cole shook his head. "She did most of the explaining." Walter smiled faintly. They walked through the farmhouse together. Walter paused at the basement door when he saw the new latch and the restored lights. "Travis told me the room had water damage," he said. "He said the family left on their own." Megan stood beside him. "We left because the door was locked and the cottage power was cut." Walter closed his eyes briefly. Not from surprise. From recognition. "He wanted the land sold before I could return." Mills handed him a copy of the questioned financial authorization. Walter studied the signature. "That is not mine." His voice remained quiet, but something firm entered it. He did not only steal money. He tried to erase people. Belle moved down the basement stairs and stopped beside Owen's desk. Walter followed her gaze. "She always waited there during storms," he said. "Would not go upstairs until Owen did." Cole looked at the claw marks near the door. What had once seemed like evidence of fear now looked like evidence of routine, loyalty, and a promise the dog had repeated even when no one else was listening. Later, they gathered beside the new garden gate. Owen opened it for Walter. Belle walked through first, then returned and stood beside the boy. Walter touched the old wire panel with one hand. "Good use for bad metal," he said. Cole looked toward the barn, where the remaining cage sections waited to be removed. "We are not finished." Walter nodded toward the open basement door and the gates swinging in the morning wind. "No," he said, "but now we know which things should stay open." Over the next 2 weeks, the farm changed one careful repair at a time. Cole removed the remaining cage panels from the barn, replaced the broken boards, and built open stalls for feed and tools. Walter rested often but insisted on sitting nearby with a notebook, checking each repair against the list he had kept before his stroke. Megan returned to work 3 mornings a week, while Hannah helped arrange transportation and updated the county housing records. Owen went back to school with his blue backpack, Belle beside the porch each afternoon before the bus arrived. She never crossed the road. She simply waited until he stepped down, then walked him to the cottage as if the distance were still dangerous enough to deserve attention. Cole began arriving before sunrise and leaving after dark. The bank had completed its inspection, but he kept finding reasons to return. A loose gutter, a cracked greenhouse panel, a fence line that leaned toward the creek. Walter noticed. "You know the property is no longer your assignment," he said one evening. Cole tightened a bolt on the new basement handrail. "I know. Then why are you still here?" Cole looked down the stairwell. The basement lights were bright now. The emergency passage had reflective markers, working lanterns, and a weatherproof hatch that could be opened easily from either side. Owen's desk stood beneath a clean reading lamp. Belle rested near the bottom step, no longer watching the door. "Because unfinished things tend to invite the wrong people," Cole said. Walter smiled. "That sounds like a Marine answer." Cole had no better one. The truth was simpler and harder to explain. He had spent years moving from one inspection job to another, repairing buildings no one intended to love. The farm was different. Every board belonged to someone's safety. Every latch carried a memory of what could happen when a person used access as power. Cole understood that language too well. One afternoon, Deputy Mills arrived with the final financial report. Travis had admitted filing the false vacancy documents and removing Megan's tenancy records. Investigators had traced the unauthorized transfers and confirmed that he had ordered both new locks. He would face the consequences through the court, and a judge had extended the order, keeping him away from the property. Mills spoke with Walter and Megan at the kitchen table, while Owen colored beside Belle. No one celebrated. Justice arrived as paper, signatures, and a quiet sense that the fear no longer had permission to return. Walter signed the new management agreement, placing the farm under an independent local trust until he fully recovered. Megan's lease was renewed. Owen's school records listed the cottage as his permanent home. Hannah closed the final county folder and set it on the table. "This is what should have existed before anyone tried to erase it," she said. "A record clear enough that one person cannot make a family disappear." Cole looked toward the open basement door, and a door that works from both sides. That weekend, the first storm warning of the season moved across the county. Dark clouds gathered over the fields, and the weather radio sounded shortly after sunset. Megan led Owen to the basement, while Walter followed carefully with his cane. Belle walked beside the boy, calm and familiar. Cole checked the emergency lights, the ventilation, and the outer hatch. The new system worked exactly as intended. Wind pressed against the farmhouse, but below ground the room remained warm and steady. Owen sat at his desk, drawing a picture of the garden gate. In the drawing, Belle stood in the middle of the opening with no fence behind her. "Are you scared?" Cole asked. Owen shook his head. "Not now." "Why not?" The boy looked around the room. "Because nobody can lock it from upstairs." Walter lowered his eyes. Megan reached over and squeezed Owen's shoulder. Belle rose, crossed the floor, and placed herself between the boy and the open stairway. Not blocking it, watching it. The storm passed within an hour. When they climbed back upstairs, moonlight had broken through the clouds. The basement door remained open behind them. Belle stopped at the threshold and looked toward Cole. He switched off his metal flashlight. The room no longer needed his beam to reveal what it was. The truth had light of its own now. Outside, the garden gate moved gently in the wind. Owen opened it, and Belle walked through without hesitation. Cole followed, not because she needed help finding anyone this time, but because some paths become worth walking even after the rescue is over. By early summer, the farm no longer appeared on the bank's foreclosure list. Walter's recovery had progressed enough for him to walk the porch without his cane, though he still kept it nearby on uneven ground. Megan's cottage had fresh paint, reliable power, and a new roof over the back room. Owen had planted beans, tomatoes, and sunflowers behind the gate Cole built from the old cage panel. Belle spent most afternoons beneath the largest sunflower, watching the boy work with a seriousness that made Walter smile. Cole still came 3 or 4 days each week. The official repairs had ended, but he had accepted a part-time position with the local trust managing the property. The work paid less than the inspection contracts, yet he no longer measured every day by distance traveled or buildings checked. Some mornings he repaired fences. Other days he updated emergency plans, tested the basement lights, or helped Walter organize records so no future manager could change the truth with one false form. The farmhouse had taught him that safety was not created by one dramatic act. It was maintained through small things done correctly and repeated when no one was watching. On the first Saturday in June, the community gathered near the garden for a simple dedication. Hannah brought copies of the finalized housing documents. Deputy Mills arrived without his uniform jacket and carried a box of lemonade. Several teachers from Owen's school brought plants for the garden. No one mentioned Travis by name. His actions were now part of a court record, not the center of the family's future. Walter stood beside the new gate and thanked everyone who had helped preserve the farm. His voice remained quiet, but it carried across the yard. This place almost disappeared on paper, he said. The people living here did not. Owen stood beside Belle with one hand resting on her worn leather collar. When Walter finished, the boy opened the garden gate. Belle remained where she was. The metal frame swung freely between the wooden posts, its old wire cleaned and painted dark green. A small brass plate near the latch read Belle's gate. Owen looked at Cole. She will not go through. Cole crouched several feet away. Maybe she is waiting for you. Owen stepped into the garden. Belle followed immediately. The crowd laughed softly, but Cole understood the choice. She had never been afraid of gates. She had been afraid of being separated from the person beyond them. Owen picked a small sunflower and carried it back to Walter. Belle returned through the opening at his side. No chain closed behind them. Later, while the others ate beneath the trees, Cole walked toward the barn. Only faint marks on the floor showed where the cage had once stood. The open stalls now held seed bags, garden tools, and a workbench Owen used for school projects. Cole placed his metal flashlight on the bench. He had carried it into hundreds of dark rooms, trusting its narrow beam to reveal what needed repair. Here, it had shown him something more difficult. A room could tell the wrong story when viewed too quickly. A lock could look like protection. A shelter could look like a prison. A frightened family could look absent if paperwork said no one was there. Belle entered the barn behind him, silent as always. She sniffed the empty place where the cage had stood, then looked toward the farmhouse. Cole followed her outside. Through the open front door, he could see the basement stairway lit by afternoon sun. The door remained secured against accidental closing, and the new latch could be opened from either side. Owen had taped one of his drawings beside it. Belle stood at the top of the stairs, Cole below holding his flashlight, and between them an open door filled with yellow light. Cole looked down at the real flashlight in his hand and turned it off. "You do not need this anymore," Walter said from the hallway. Cole glanced back. "The batteries still work." Walter smiled. "That is not what I meant." They walked into the yard together. Megan and Hannah were reviewing a school transportation form at the picnic table. Mills helped Owen carry a watering can toward the garden. Belle moved among them, checking each person before settling near the gate. She no longer watched the road for someone returning. She watched the family because they were already there. Near sunset, Owen called everyone to see the first tomato forming on one of the vines. Cole stood outside the gate and let the others enter ahead of him. Belle remained beside his leg. The old instinct returned for one brief second. She looked back toward the barn, then toward the farmhouse, counting doors, paths, and people. Cole placed one hand lightly against her shoulder. "They are all here." Belle looked up at him. Then she walked through the gate. Cole followed. Behind them, the farm settled into evening with its doors open, its lights warm, and every name restored to the record. Someone had once used locks to make a family disappear. Belle had answered with patience, memory, and every open path she could find. In the end, she did more than lead Cole to a basement. She led him to the people hidden behind a false story, and she stayed until every door pointed home.